to record this from my other channel, but I figured that it's too banterous, so I just figured I'll start another series here on this channel, which will mainly be for basic banter. So in the background I'll just be playing a game a la Leafy, although I guess that format has been dead for years now. At the same time, I want to discuss some shit that's been bothering me, especially considering the CBC. Obviously, right here I picked Kislev, because why not? Ooh, la la. Okay, so Kislev basically reminds me of Canada, so that's why I picked it there. Although it kind of has more to do with the Russian, Polish type things here. This is Call of Warhammer, by the way. It's an awesome mod for medieval Total War. And yes, I did not record the audio. It doesn't start recording the audio until like 15 minutes in, so I'll figure that out later. So I was watching this article that the CBC is pushing, and I always get mad because the CBC is basically government funded. It gets government benefits, government grants, and they pull things that are just blatant propaganda. So I'm gonna display this here in the corner, but it says Canada's response to the Rohingya crisis gets a middling grade. Okay, don't get me wrong, I feel bad for the people who are in the crisis, but that has nothing to do with Canada. And as you see the article and we read it, I'll read it here. It's honestly just some grade A BS, just freaking propaganda. Okay, so it says, also, this article is written by Idil Musa. I'm sure he doesn't have any other, he has nothing to gain or to push any particular agenda here, or push for any particular group. Wink wink, nudge nudge. Okay, so the first line: an Ottawa human rights organization has given Canada a C grade for its efforts in the 2018 addressing the Rohingya crisis. Okay, so we've become such a meme country that we give ourselves our own meme review. So we give ourselves a C for something that we do not cause, we have no control over, and as somebody who's lived outside of North America for the majority of their life, I'll tell you, it's a pain in the ass. And honestly, how North Americans are seen as outside of North America is actually mostly with contempt. Not so much Canadians, although if you do say you're North American, you will be associated with the USA, and thus people won't be too impressed with you. But Canada is kind of just flies under the radar. Don't kid yourself. Don't think that Canadians are actually given a pass. They're not. They're just kind of seen as lesser dicks than the U.S. But this is not here nor there. Like, Canada is a great country, and honestly, this article is just fucking meme. So it goes on. The Rohingya Human Rights Report worked along with the University of Ottawa's Human Rights Education Centre and Montreal Institute for Genocide Studies at Concordia University to produce a year-end report card. Okay, the thing is that this article never mentions any other countries. It's like a self-hating propaganda, and this is what I hate about CBC and other left-leaning things. It makes us feel bad for who we are, even though we don't have any fucking say in what happens in other countries. And honestly, it's not our problem either. I mean, as I said before, don't get me wrong. It's terrible what's going on there, and it sounds terrible. Obviously, it looks as the media is trying to push a particular narrative there. Oh, from what I understand, the situation is that people of this Muslim group here attacked some military stations, so the military kind of retaliated. Obviously, both groups deny the fact that either or were responsible for any of that. You know, I wouldn't be surprised that it could be a false flag, but if you see other groups in other countries such as India where they have a Muslim group or they have a Hindi group, they don't tend to get along very well. So further in the article it says, according to the United Nations, since last 2017, more than 700,000 Rohingya have fled widespread systemic and ethnic violence. Okay, so this is another thing. Islam is not a race. I don't know why the media keeps trying to push it, but it's not a race. And second thing is that the article makes no mention of what I mentioned previously about military or police checkpoints being attacked. They can allegate it's a false flag, but it's pertinent to it should be pertinent to the article, but nowhere is it mentioned. So they bring up this Mr. Khan here. What's his full name? Farid Khan says that in order to save lives, the government of Canada has more things that they can be doing. Okay, so Mr. Farid Khan says Canada needs to work more closely with international partners to bring all parties responsible for violence to justice. Okay, Canada is not the world police, nor should we care to be the world police. I don't find this in any way pertinent. And then, as previously mentioned, Mr. Khan works for what appears to be an NGO, which the CBC is writing an article for basically pushing the NGO's agenda. And not only are they pushing their agenda, but they're also sorry, I'm playing my game at the same time, but they're also I lost my train of thought. I'll be right back. So Mr. Khan works for an NGO. This NGO's news is being pushed through the CBC, which is publicly funded, and they're claiming that the government of Canada should feel responsible for people who are citizens of a different country. Okay. Canada has no responsibility for citizens of a different country. Second, as I said before, we shouldn't be considered responsible for them. So also he talks about there not being any action against leaders of this nation with this name I cannot pronounce here, Aung Suu Kyi. Amnesty International Canada also agrees with the general assessment of the report card. I wonder if these NGOs are reporting in other countries and wondering, okay, so you got refugees from quote-unquote Syria, now you got refugees from Rohingya, and you got all these refugees that it seems like... Also, this is another thing, I'm going to go through the comments, and on the Facebook comments, and I'm not going to name any names, obviously, because that'd be doxing, but the general consensus in the Facebook comment, and I know that it's not a reliable source, but they bring up good points, that the fact that how come these other Muslim majority countries surrounding these Muslim groups are not helping them? Why is it Canada's responsibility to take care of these people? Okay, continuing the article, so these refugees are now in Bangladesh, it appears. Bangladesh, if I am not wrong, is a Muslim majority country. And Bangladesh doesn't want them there. I mean, just like the caravan in the United States, I guess, nobody wants a stream of mass migration in your country. Not even countries of the same ethnic and religious groups. It's just, I shouldn't say ethnic because I don't know if that's true, but at least religious groups is true. So, further the article, Khan said officials should invoke UN genocide conventions, and then he compares this to Nazi Germany. Like, honestly, this is insane. How can you compare one to the other? I don't see the Myanmar government setting up chambers to, like, mass remove people of this group. This is just ludicrous, and it's the reason that they're saying this is just to pander to a specific, to pull at people's heartstrings and just being like, look how bad this is, and look how bad you should feel because you're not helping. That, again, if it is true that these people are being harmed, then I do feel very, very bad for them. But with many news outlets that just blatantly lie about their coverage and just, like, the Syrian refugees. If you see people that are quote-unquote Syrian refugees that are leaving mainly from sub-Saharan and northern Africa, those are not Syrian. And so they're being caught in lies like this. So I don't know why. One of my biggest issues is why is an NGO get to publish propaganda on CBC? Okay, so it says Khan said while his report is critical of Canada, it does acknowledge the positive work the country has done to address the crisis. He said the House of Commons' decision to officially recognize the Rohingya genocide. Of course, this is by Mr. Trudeau and the Liberal government, who care more about anybody else but Canadians. So it says it's the first parliament in the world to do so, yet we get a C grade. Like, we're already pandering to these people's agenda, and they're not happy. They're not happy at all. So what they push is that Canada should be more involved in this situation in the new year. Okay, so why? That hasn't been answered. We're not responsible for other citizens of other countries. If your NGO wants to do this through your own financial means, by all, go ahead. That's very nice of you to be helping out the people. But the government of Canada should not be involved, should not be spending tax dollars in order to help people who are not part of Canada as a whole. Okay, so I'm actually being attacked by chaos here. Very fitting, I guess, that we're fighting chaos right now. I think this is where sound finally comes back in the video, but I digress. We have to move forward with international institutions that are at our disposal and that we have access to. Amnesty International would also like to see Canada play a greater leadership role in the Rohingya refugees. What does this mean? This means that they want those people to resettle in Canada. One, I don't know whether these people have any knowledge of English or French. Two, the climate in Canada compared to Myanmar and Burma are very, very different. Three, these people are going to need some sort of income to reset. And that's not going to come out of the NGO's pocket. That's going to come out of the government's pocket. That's going to come out of tax dollars' pocket. And this is just enough. Basically, what they want here is to expand the government apparatus to be able to charge and tax more. And I don't feel that's fair. Because, one, these are not Canadian citizens. Yes, if it's true that they are being persecuted for their religion, that is wrong. And if you already have an NGO set up to, like, at least shit talk on Canadians, you should be, instead of writing propaganda on the CBC like you're doing right now, Mr. Khan and Mr. Musa, you should be raising funds to help those people. I don't understand why you gotta come on the CBC and shame people for just the simple fact of being Canadian at this point. Okay, so next thing, I'm just gonna bear charge into the back of these shield meetings and gonna go through the comments. Obviously, the comment sections is usually cesspool of things, and I find it funny now that in order to find the most liked comments now on articles like this that are just plain propaganda in the CBC, you gotta scroll down to find the real liked comments. So obviously, once you scroll down, you'll find the fact that most people have consensus in the comments that what is Canada's point in this? There is none. You're just pushing it for some reason that it's unknown to me. Well, it is known to me. You're trying to expand the government apparatus. That's what you're trying to do. And you're trying to bring more migration that will be a burden on the state because these people are not going to be able to. Maybe the children will. That's not true. Maybe the children will. They'll be able to learn English, French, acclimatize, and be able to hold a substantial life. But if you're talking about people past their 40s who are going to be in retirement age within 20 years, you're just bringing migrants that are going to be a taxation on the system. And it's tragic, okay? It's tragic. But there is no point for Canada to do this, okay? This is another reason that the Trudeau government has been falling out of favor rather quickly in the eyes of Canadians, because it seems to care more about other people than it really cares about its own Canadians. Like with Mr. Trudeau's carbon tax, which is another in Ontario, with our Liberal Premier that, thank God, they're out. Just taxation after taxation. It's just money and money and money, and they want to squeeze the middle class out of money. This is why I think that a Libertarian Party would have been phenomenal in Canada. I'm mostly against government spending. I think that everybody praises our healthcare system, but honestly, it's horrible. You go to the hospital and it takes you maybe 20 minutes to get to the front desk, and then maybe 5 to 6, 7 hours for you to see a doctor. By then, you're usually, if it's not something serious, you're usually ready to go home. You just spent your entire evening in the freaking hospital without seeing anybody. It's honestly pathetic. But the reason that this also happens is because Canada also wants these refugees to come in. But there's always the caveat that people on the left like to put, that these people, they might be doctors. Yes, some of them might be, actually, but the thing is that under the current laws that we have, they won't be allowed to work there. So it's just regulation after regulation. Even if you wanted to, and even if they were the most qualified doctors, they wouldn't be able to work. Not because they're not qualified, it's just because the government has so much regulation on everything that it's absolutely ridiculous. Second, there's another comment here that I'm going to point out. It's also very, very on the nail here, which I mentioned earlier. They make a comparison between the Holocaust and what's happening in. I'm not even going to call it a genocide. I'm going to call it a migrant crisis. I know that it sounds really terrible as well, but you're trying to push a narrative so hard that you end up alienating people who would even agree with you just over that. That's just insane. And finally, yeah, there's just a mix of that, and then obviously the NPCs arguing over the fact that, oh yeah, but we can help them as well. Yeah, you know what? The NPCs can help them if they want. They can donate to the NGO, bring funds, but do so out of your private purse. There's no need to bring public funds. That is my biggest point here, and that's what I think is the biggest point that the CBC is trying to make. Okay, so with that rant out of the way, I will continue to play my game, and you tell me what you think what I should do with the series. I mean, I understand that this format of playing games in the background while discussing some topic is kind of passé now, but I guess all things come around. But
moving quietly.
It is what it is. I'll maybe have another video furthering this campaign. Actually, I think it's just gonna play this campaign in the background while I discuss things that piss me off. Well, that's all for now.
Yes. Very good, Lord. Moving quietly.